Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is our 2026, NFL Draft Prospect Show, along with Joey Clinkscales and Harper LeBel. I'm Harper LeBel. Thank you for tuning in. And no, this is not a 2022 show, but this goes back to 2022. This is our guest that we have that we're going to feature here today, Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas. Here's a guy that out of high school, guys. He ended up getting a chance to play. He had 1,400 yards. He had 15 touchdowns. He was a two-star recruit, though, out of Ithaca, New York. He ends up going to the University of Buffalo. He plays for the Bulls a couple years, then transfers to New Mexico State, and then he plays a year there, then transfers for his senior year in his final one at Arkansas. Now, the Razorbacks didn't have a great season, but they do have a good rushing game, and Mike was a part of that. We're still wondering whether he's 6'2" or he's 6 feet. He's somewhere in the middle. Joey, you know as well as I do, the NFL tape is going to be a little bit short rather than long. They're always going to say that you're shorter than what you actually are. But whether or not he's 6 or 6'2", he's still a bigger back. He's quick. He's fast. He has all kinds of talent. Last year, he rushed for 1,070 yards. He had eight touchdowns on the ground. He had another receiving touchdowns. He had 23 receptions for 226 yards in the air. So here's a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield. If you can block and you can run like this guy, you're going to find yourself an NFL roster that you're going to make.
Oh yeah, I would venture to say that he's going to get drafted in a pretty good situation for a running back. He's a kid that again, he jumps off the tape with some of the skills that he had. He's got some home run ability. I mean, if he breaks the line of scrimmage, he has the speed to go to distance now, and he has the ability to finish runs as well. There are a couple of tapes I saw where he's able to drop his shoulder and finish a run, keep his balance. He had a lot of explosive plays this year, and when I say explosive plays, I mean over 15 yards. He had a lot of those this year. I like the fact that he does a really good job of catching the ball at the backfield. Now, the offense that Arkansas wasn't such where he ran a lot of option routes and that kind of thing, but he ran a lot of swing routes. He caught the ball really naturally and easily, and he got really good yards after the catch. He was really aware of where the pressure was coming from. I saw him a couple times on blitz pickups. He's strong enough and physical enough to do that. That's something he has to get better at. But if he's tough enough and he's physical enough, I don't see it as being a limiting factor in the player. But he did a lot of really good things. And again,
tough.
Yeah, for a guy that size, he's got burst through the line of scrimmage and acceleration to finish a run. So he has two things, along with being 220 pounds as a runner. And if you look at pictures of him, I mean, he's really put together. I mean, he looks like a running back. He looks like a muscular guy. So there are things about him you really like. And although he's well-traveled, I think he'll have a chance to play in the National Football League.
Brian, a lot of things that I saw on film, and one of them is that he's not afraid of contact. As fast and as quick as he is and his ability to get away from people, he doesn't shy away from contact, at least not from what I saw. What are some of the things that impressed you?
Well, exactly that. And, he'll initiate contact. He'll keep his feet moving too, right? He's out there to punish you. If you're a second level defender, he's seeking contact. He wants to run you over. He wants to wear you down. He's a guy that you'd love to have, because he's going to run a defense down. And once the end of the third, the fourth quarter comes around, they're going to be gassed. The home run ability is there, and he loves, running in the open field, but he loves running between the tackles just as much. He's able to do a little bit of everything on offense pretty well. I think the fact that Arkansas was so bad offensively, and, they were a bad football team, and you could argue, they lost a couple of close games here and there, but he was really a bright spot on a team that didn't have very many this year. He was featured, once the halfway point of the season came through, everyone knew this was the guy, right? You had to slow him down. You had to stop him. And teams really didn't have an answer for him, right? Arkansas didn't have much else, but teams are scheming. You got SEC teams like you got Alabama, you got Texas A&M, you got good teams that are scheming for this kid. He still kind of had his way. He had a ton of success. I really like watching him run. He reminds me a little bit of DeMarco Murray when I watch him. That was my kind of comp. If you look at the size, if you look at because he's a big dude, but he's also shifty, right? He can cut, he can spin, he can run you over, and there's just certain points where if there's a hole and he sees it, he hits it just with a furious pace, and he's going to take off, and he's going to try to do everything he can to advance the football further down the field. It honestly was a lot of fun to watch him, play, breaking down the tape. But man, this kid has a little bit of everything, and if you're breaking down his game, there's nothing really that you don't like.
Joey, Brian brings up a very interesting point regarding the SEC and the class that he goes against, especially in the western side of that conference with Texas, Oklahoma. Great defenses there. LSU, of course, Alabama, Auburn, the whole 9 yards. He's going against all these, and he still gets over 1,000 yards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he didn't have his greatest year ever. And I would argue if I were a scout and I wanted to get him, I go, look at how well he did with that lousy offensive line that they had. Please, no offense to Arkansas fans. I'm just saying they were in the lower tier of the conference. And he's still, knowing full well that every defensive coordinator that they faced was going to, let's stop this kid. And he did everything to do that. And he was still very productive. I think that speaks volumes for how good he is and what he was able to do outside of a team that was kind of porous offensively last year.
Absolutely. I mean, his like I said, I like to talk about kid's skill set. He's got a really big skill set. I mean, he can make you miss in the backfield. It's not something he does a whole lot, but he's just not a straight line runner. He can make you miss. He's got the feet to make you miss. He can make you miss in the hole. And once he sees a crack, he's got, again, the burst to accelerate, the burst to get away from people once he sees it, and the acceleration to hit a home run. From a speed perspective, I like his vision. I like his toughness. Again, we talked about his explosion. And my comp, I got a dual comp. The Davenport kid that came from Alabama that went to Pittsburgh. I think he's better than him because that kid plays more light. He's not a real. He's a big guy that plays like a little guy. He doesn't try to be physical for a big guy. He tries to make too many guys miss. And I think this guy's a lot more physical than that kid, and he was a first-round pick. Omarion Hampton, who I think was a first-round pick to the Chargers last year, I think there are more similarities with him, with this kid, and they both have the speed to go the distance. And I'm not saying this kid to be a first-round pick, but I would venture to say once the first back, and maybe first two backs go off the board, this guy might be the next most attractive guy because all the skills that you're looking for in the running back he has. He's got size. He's got speed. He can catch the ball. He's got some explosion. He can make people miss, and he's tough. So from that standpoint, there'll be guys that probably were a lot more productive. But from a skill set perspective, this guy has a lot more things, notches in his belt to be a better professional football player.
Yeah, things that you mentioned, Joey, are obviously a critical factor. One also that we would, we got to bring it up is that he's fumbled the ball 10 times. Brian, is that a concern for you?
At the running back position, yeah. You know what I mean? That's obviously going to be a concern because taking care of the football, that's your first and foremost, that's what you got to do, right? You can't run down the field to leave the football behind. So I think he'll improve on that, right? I think you can work on that. I think the fumbling is just, maybe carry it differently, do something different. I'm sure they're going to do everything. Whoever picks him up is going to do everything they can to, hey, that's a priority one. But, the way he runs and his play style, he doesn't shy from contact, right? And obviously that's kind of part of it. When you're going to get hit, obviously, every once in a while, you're going to lose the football. But it doesn't concern me a ton as of yet. If he keeps doing it at the next level, obviously, then it becomes an issue. But it's something you can work on and something you can clean up. And I just think the talent otherwise is just it kind of jumps out at you to the point where, you're almost willing to take the risk. But I think that gets cleaned up at the, whatever NFL team he ends up going to.
And Joey, you mentioned something a little while ago in terms of just the type of player that he is. I think that an advantage for him is that he's fast enough. If he goes one-on-one with the linebacker, let's say he's running a route and he's got to get out in the flat, he's quick enough to be able to get out there. He's also big enough against a safety or a nickel corner that's going to cover him to be able to catch the ball and break a tackle, or at least as well.
Yeah, from a physicality standpoint, there is nothing he can't do. He can run through a tackle. He can run through a safety tackle. He can run through a linebacker tackle. He's got the size to run and the speed to run away from those guys. So it'll be interesting to see where this guy ends up. The fumbles are a little bit of a concern. If you guys remember the Patriots running back, I don't remember whether it was Henderson or Stevenson, one of those guys, I think it was Stevenson, had the fumbling issues early in the season, and then Vrabel benched him for a bit. But they kept him going and they kept him engaged. And eventually, when they needed him most, he was available because he wasn't fumbling the ball anymore. So if that becomes an issue, which it could, it happens to the young backs. It happened to old backs. It happened to Tiki Barber when he was with the Giants, and they had to change how he carried the ball. So those things are correctable. It's just how you're holding the ball, and it looks like he's got fairly big hands, so really fumbling shouldn't be a problem if he's carrying the ball correctly. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. But from a skill set perspective, I really like his talent.
Well, we mentioned the 6'4", 6'9" that we don't know. Is he 6 feet, 6'2"? We're not sure about that. He weighs about 228 pounds. He's a 4.4 guy. That 4.45 is basically what he was timed at. And in terms of just breaking things down, his arm length, he's got the longest arms of anybody in the draft this year. So that might be a great asset in terms of pass protection. But just in terms of the size of the guy and all that, and his fluidity, that to me is a very interesting point. A little bit more of a Terrell Davis than he is kind of a Emmett Smith guy. Both are Hall of Famers and deservedly so. He's got a long way to go before that. I'm just saying he's a lengthier, longer body, which I think from a finesse standpoint is really an important one. Before we move on, Joey, you had the last point, so I'm going to go with you, Brian. We mentioned the SEC schedule and all of that kind of thing. It's important. It's not critical, but put him with a Seahawk offensive line right now or an Atlanta Falcon offensive line. Does he immediately make a difference and be the guy that ends up being number one? Or is he going to have to sit and wait where Bijan Robinson is the number one and you're going to go with another guy that's going to be your power back but have the ability to get outside? He can do both because of his size.
Well, the way a lot of teams are going is they're doing with the dual back setting, right? You want to have kind of a 1-2 punch. Washington does both things pretty well. He's a speedy guy. He's also a strength guy. But he's going to be in a position where he's probably going to go in and he'll be on a team. Maybe he gets, the bell cow role immediately. But more so than anything, he's probably going to split carries because that's just kind of what everybody's doing right now. But, realistically, if you talk about Arkansas's offensive line, it wasn't great. We mentioned that earlier. He's going to be probably in a better situation. You'd hope so coming in. I mean, Ashton Jeanty, obviously had the short end of the stick where he kind of went the opposite direction. He had a pretty decent line at Boise State. Then he came in and now he's with the Raiders and, they haven't really been able to block for him. But he's going to get usage early on, right? Because, I don't know where a team's going to take him because running backs are kind of weird, right? Because you get sometimes the first running back will go in the top 10 and sometimes it will go to the end of the first round, early second. So it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. But the kid's a playmaker, and it's going to be hard to keep him off the field, right? At least in a situation where maybe a third down set in the passing game, because he's good out of the backfield, and he can play as a 3-down guy. So it's just going to depend on how well he does in camp, who picks him up. Injuries are obviously a factor too, right? At the running back position. Guys get hurt. They get banged up all the time because you're always taking contact. So I would be shocked if he's not seeing, at least 50 to 60 carries in his first season. And I think he's going to be, he's going to make someone very happy depending on where he ends up, who he's playing alongside, and, how it all ends up working out. We won't know that till April, but the sky's the limit for this kid. I really like watching him play.
Joey, Brian brings up a couple of points. He mentioned the Ashton Jeanty thing. Ashton had, 300 or 400 carries his senior year. Here's a guy that only had 167. I think he's got fresh legs comparatively, and that's something that will be a great advantage. Another thing is, even if you're behind a porous offensive line at the NFL level, if you break a tackle or two and get to the outside, I know every offensive lineman that I've ever been around, if there's a chance that this guy can make a big play, you're going to block just a little bit better, knowing full well that you have the opportunity, just the chance, the slightest bit, that if I just hang on my block and don't hold, my guy can squirt through. He may rub into me. He might, his hit might hit me in the thigh, but he might break it. So there's a different incentive, if you will, from the running game of knowing there's a guy that can take it to the house.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna go back to something you said. You asked Brian if Atlanta takes this guy and they take Bijan Robinson off the field, you won't need a search firm to come in and fire whoever did that. I'll just put it that way. Bijan Robinson does not come off the field for anybody. That being said, this guy is a really good football player. The things you mentioned about him a few minutes ago, they're all true. I do think he's going to go into a situation where he's going to play early. I'm not saying he's going to go in to start. He will share time with someone, and that's probably the way the really good teams kind of have running back by committee. maybe they have a bell cow that plays, 2 or 3 series in a row, and then the next guy come in and play a series, something like that. But this guy's talent won't keep him off the field unless he comes in and he's a fumbler. Outside of that, you're going to give this guy enough carries because he's got a chance to go the distance when he touches the ball. Every time he touches the ball, a team like Seattle, let's just say, Walker is a free agent.
Yeah.
From a talent standpoint, this guy's talent runs circles around what Walker can do. Walker, we're going to talk about a running back who coming up in our next segment, who I compare to Kenneth Walker because of the way they're built, their speed, or they have short area bursts but not long speed. This guy has got short bursts and long speed, and he's a lot bigger. So and he's probably got better hands and a better blocker. So he's just not the Super Bowl MVP. So you can take that for what it's worth. But I do like this kid. I do think this kid will have a chance to play. And running backs have been devalued in the NFL draft as of late until you really need one. And so I'm unsure where this guy's going to go. But somebody's going to get a really, really fine football player in Mike Washington Jr.
Brian, your final thought. If you take Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price, you've got Emmett Johnson, Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, Damon Claiborne. There's a couple guys that are in front of him. I really think, depending on how well they do at the combine, Mike Washington has a way and a place for himself, if he has a really nice combine, to kind of move up in the order and go from being 7th or 8th or wherever to 5th or 6th. I'm not expecting much more than that because I think the other guys are going to do well in the combine. But what's your thought in terms of where his positioning is going to be with his skill set in Arkansas, and then going against the Washington guy, the guy from Nebraska, the guys from Notre Dame?
I think playing at Arkansas, I think he kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit, right? It's when you're seeing Jeremiah Love, what he does in primetime consistently, I think he's the consensus number one. I think he deserves that. But Mike Washington isn't that far behind him in a lot of the things that, he does, as far as the strength, as far as the speed, as far as everything. He's not that far behind him. He's right there. And you mentioned earlier, he's got, probably 300 less carries over his collegiate career. So I think this kid could sneak up just because someone's going to turn on the tape, maybe not necessarily the combine, that obviously that can help him out, but they're gonna watch him and they're gonna say this kid is really, really good and he's flying under the radar a little bit. It's hard to grade him. I think he's got all the skills in the world. I'd love to have him on my team. You're not sure until April, right? But I think he's right there with all those guys already. I just think the combine could push him over a little bit, but man, he's one of those guys where you're getting a little giddy about it, right? Because you watch him play, like, man, this kid did a lot of things really, really well. And, I think he's going to be really, really good at the next level.
Well, there you have it, folks. Mike Washington Jr., running back, 230 pounds, strong, fast, quick, can catch a ball out of the backfield. He's a touchdown scorer. He's a guy that really has an interesting story, and we're glad that we got a chance to talk about him here at 100 Yards of Football. This has been the 2026 NFL Draft Prospect Show with Joey Clinkscales, with Brian LeBel. We appreciate you watching the show. If you liked it, please subscribe and tell a friend, and let everybody know that we're talking about some of the best prospects that are coming out in this year's draft, and we'd love to share that with others. In the meanwhile, we want to thank you for